Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Finding Yourself Again, where we focus on hope, healing, and recovery from toxic narcissistic abuse. The ultimate goal is to establish self-love, healthy relationships, and to ultimately find yourself. My name's Dontre. I'm a survivor of toxic abuse from a narcissist/borderline. If you find these videos to be helpful to you, I ask that you subscribe, like, share the content with someone that it could help, and watch any other videos that might be helpful to you. I ain't gonna hold y'all up, so with that being said, let's get into the video. So today's topic is gonna be how to break free from toxic relationships. My last video, if you haven't watched by now, you can go ahead and check it out. It's called "What is a Toxic Relationship?" So in that video, I basically go over like what is a toxic relationship dynamic, like, what does it look like, what type of behaviors does the toxic person have, like what's the dynamic of the relationship and stuff like that. I made that video first because I thought it was important to first understand if you're in a toxic relationship or not. Because there's a lot of subjective things. You talk to a bunch of different people, they'll give you a whole bunch of different personalities or characteristics of what they consider to be toxic, So I wanted a general breakdown of what would be for sure considered toxic, and you can check that video out. I would actually recommend that you watch that video before you watch this one. That way you could get more of an understanding. But today's video is going to be how to break free from the toxic relationships. And this is going to be a 5-step process, a difficult 5-step process. It's not going to be simple. I was going to say it's simple, but the only thing simple about it is it's 5 steps. You know what I mean? But they're not the easiest steps. First of all, I want to commend you if you're in this situation and you're even considering breaking free from a toxic relationship. That tells me you've came a long way. That tells me that you have acknowledged and realized that the relationship is toxic. And with that being said, that's going to be the first step. And it's going to be to acknowledge and accept. So with this step, you're going to acknowledge that and you're going to accept that the relationship is toxic and non-beneficial to you. You're going to acknowledge your feelings. And this is a point where some people, coping skills are going to be mandatory here. And people cope in different ways. Some people drink alcohol, some people use drugs, some people use other people. Like there's a range of ways that people cope. I'm gonna mention and recommend that you do not partake into alcohol or drugs during this time. Not only will it hinder the process, it can actually make things like 10 times worse, especially with alcohol, and drugs. Some people like to smoke weed, some people vape, I'm not totally against that personally, but I would recommend not to do it if possible for you, because I understand it's hard to cope with things, especially these types of things. But the last thing you want to do is cope with alcohol or drugs. It makes it a longer healing process, and it makes it harder, and it could potentially make things worse. The second step is going to be the plan. So this is the real plan. This is this is like, you getting to business. This is where you plan your break or escape. You do what you have to do right here, whether that's calling loved ones, explaining your situation if possible. If that's not possible, if you're very, like, if you just very independent and you don't want your family or loved ones to know what's going on, or for whatever reason, maybe you don't have very many, resources, then you're gonna have to work. It's gonna be time to work and save as much as possible, preferably in a separate account that you keep, that is in where you keep your bank card in a disclosed location where only you know, not anybody else. And keep it a secret to your toxic partner, obviously, that you have another bank account. So maybe this might be, you may need to save your account information somewhere where your partner won't find it, in your phone, and then you may need to, download the app whenever you need to check in, and then delete the app, so your partner, this is for like if you have a partner that's controlling, going through your phone, stuff like that, which normally they are like that. So those are just some helpful tips right there. So yeah, this can and will take time, but the sooner the better you can reclaim your life. It's gonna take time. It took me time. My situation was a little bit different, but it still took time. At the end of the day, I didn't just up and leave at the first toxic sign or the first red flag. I stood there and kept getting beat up in the relationship, psychologically and physically, on some crazy shit. But yeah, so I know how it is. But the plan, this is like one of the most important steps. The next most important is going to be the last one. But number 3 is to remain calm. I made this a step because I think it's very important to remain calm while you're going through all this. This is going to be a time of turbulence. It could be a time of chaos, uncertainty, stress, just negative emotions, like just all type of crazy, like, you're just feeling terrible at this time, so it's going to be important for you to remain calm and collected. You may need to gray rock your partner. If you don't know what that means, it's basically just being very dry with them. That way you get very low to no emotional responses, and you just be very dry to just kind of stay out the way and avoid them. This is going to be times where you're playing it safe. You might be biting your tongue, choosing your battles, and also remaining professional, especially in the workplace and in public. The reason why I say this is because these times can get you very emotional, and you're going to come across people and your partner that you're dealing with still, where they have these attempts to, I call them emotional attempts, where they try to get you out of your character and into an emotional state, to go back and forth with them. This is something that they feed off of. And, you have to, in this situation, you have to keep your goals in mind. What are your main priorities? Saving money, so you need a job, so you have to be professional at work. You have to be decent in public. Maybe not as professional, but you have to be at least, like civil in public. Because you don't want to lose everything. I was in a situation where I actually ended up losing my job, and this is like a year and some months after my relationship, but I was going through it so much, and I was in a vulnerable state. And I had one of my clients like trying to talk slick with me one day, and I ended up talking slick back. Some words was exchanged, and I took a write-up for that. But then I ended up getting into it again, having words with some more clients outside of work, in another situation, so I wasn't at work, but still it was related to work. And I ended up getting let go. Now, do you think that I would have ended up even going through all that if I was thinking in my mind and remembering to remain calm and why I want to remain calm? No. If I knew, like, hey, I need to remain calm and have myself under control, that way I keep my job and this and that, but I lost it. And I lost more than that after because of that, So you don't want to end up losing your job or losing your car or a place to stay or for your financial goals. You know what I mean? Everything takes a hit when stuff like that happens, So if you don't have a savings, or if you don't have if you don't have the finances to recover from that, it's gonna hit you hard. So it's important to remain calm. um Number 4 is gonna be to finally make your move, if possible in silence. Keep your future in mind, what's best for you and your household, your immediate household, and make sure to have as much of a savings as possible. I know this step is the hardest, but it needs to be done for your future. This is going to be a hard step, not only financially, because you're going to have to save up the money, or emotionally, because you're going to have to depart from a relationship that was not what you once thought it would be. You know what I'm saying? And that's gonna hurt you, like it hurt me. I was with somebody for 5 years. I say it almost in every video, and it hurt me. It brought me down to my knees physically, leaving that person. And you would think that after you leave like a toxic person, you'd be like, oh, thank God I'm out of that. But you actually don't feel like that. And it's actually more similar to like a drug withdrawal. You actually have withdrawals, when you're in a real trauma bond, and I'm gonna go over that in my next video. But yeah, so it could, it's gonna be hard, but at the end of the day, this is again one of the next more important steps on here, is to make the move. Make the move. It's best for you. The last step, another most important step, and it's gonna be hard, and it's to cease contact. You have to go no contact. This involves changing your number, blocking, deleting, so you can't contact them, hoover your own self. And it includes any way that they can contact you, getting rid of it. It is important to heal right now. And you cannot heal when you're constantly being manipulated by a person. And then you're constantly going back to somebody who you had so much love for. You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to heal in that type of situation. And right now, it's important to heal. All right. So some things I wanted to mention. I know this is going to be a hard process, and I can empathize and sympathize with you. It's painful, especially when we have real love for these people. And it's a real live grieving process that you're going to go through. Remember, this is the best for you. I know you'll have backflashes, memories. Certain songs can be triggers, or places. Be patient and compassionate with yourself during this time. It's possible that you'll feel empty, alone, scared, depressed, anxious, confused, overwhelmed, or just upset. And I want you to know that these are all valid emotions. Do your best to experience them naturally without the or with the medication of a mental health professional, not drugs, not alcohol. So some key things that I want you to remember that are going to be helpful for you. And the first one is going to be to see a therapist and get diagnosed. You first want to get diagnosed to see what's going on with you, and be truthful to your psychiatrist. When I went to get diagnosed and see my psychiatrist, I actually told him everything in my life. I didn't hold back. Like anything that I could tell him that, that wouldn't get me charged, I told him, and I wanted him to know every single thing that he could know about me. That way he can have an accurate judgment of what he's going to diagnose me with. So I have GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, MDD, major depressive disorder, CPTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm not sure what the C means. And then I have substance abuse disorder, SUD. Thank God these aren't permanent disorders, and thank God I only have a mood disorder and not a personality disorder, which is permanent. So the people that are causing us all this turmoil and trauma is going to be the people that have personality disorders. I'm not pointing the finger and blaming them. I'm just acknowledging. I want it to be known there's a difference between like acknowledging and blaming. I'm not here to just put all the blame on them because they have their own reasons that they live the way they live. They have their own experiences that they've went through in life that are obviously different from ours, right? So I can even empathize and sympathize with them as well, although their behavior is not okay, right? So the next thing I think is good to remember is in my opinion, I think therapy is mandatory. In these types of relationships where PTSD is created, more than likely you need therapy anyway because of the fact you're in a toxic relationship kind of proves that, right? You need a support group, but not just from anybody either. You want this to be you want this to be a professional that can give you skills to cope and understand yourself. More importantly, a therapist that can provide empathy and understanding for you and your situation. Another key thing is to remain sober. Avoid alcohol and drugs by any means. I said that several times on this video. This can cause you to make choices that you regret later and can be very damaging to your life. You also want to cope without substances, which can hinder your healing process and will be extracting money from you. And I put a sad face right there because you don't need to be giving up money for drugs and alcohol, spending money on shit like that. That's just not going to help you. And it's probably going to make things worse. And it's risky, so you want to remain sober. The next thing is going to be to remember that not everybody is going to understand your situation. Matter of fact, most people probably won't because a lot of people haven't actually experienced the trauma bond. Many people know what toxic traits and toxic people are, but they haven't actually experienced it in a intimate relationship, or maybe not with a family member or something like that. Your responses or behavior or mood, many of us have or end up with a mood disorder, which is temporary. Family, loved ones may not understand you, and don't take this to heart. Focus on the ones that can and do show you emotional support and make sure that they're healthy people. Not everybody's going to get it. You're going to have family members and loved ones that don't understand why you just can't get over this, or why you're choosing to be like this, or people will say that you're living your life like this now, and it's like I understand I understand how you feel, and I understand what they're saying because I've said stuff like that before. Oh, why don't you just leave? Or oh, why don't you just get over this? Now I understand why you can't just get over this, because life is a lot more difficult than it appears to be, and everybody handles and deals with things in life differently, and we all have different experiences, so we all have different perspectives. It's not just black and white, you know what I mean? Some things are, but life itself is not, so at the end of the day, keep in mind not everybody's gonna understand you, and that's okay. Focus on the people that do and are willing to try, at least, and the people that are willing to have empathy, provide empathy to you. So next thing to remember is that no contact is permanent and mandatory unless ordered by law. Maybe if kids are involved, then you're going to have to gray rock, which is being short or dry with them, low to no emotional responses to your partner. No contact is permanent. That's in almost all my videos. You're gonna hear that a lot. The next thing to remember is that this will be hard with an overwhelmed mind, but it's important to do self-compassionate things like exercise, yoga, meditation, prayer, reading, painting, hiking, seeing nature, being sober, going to sober events, games, and finding new interests. This is a point where you're going to find new things that you're interested in, and maybe you might switch things up in your life. This won't only be a sense of distraction, but it will also be a healthy daily addition that is beneficial for you and helps you find yourself again. The main point in this channel. The next thing is going to be to set a new plan. After you've executed your plan on leaving the toxic situation, what are your plans now? What do you want to do? Do you want to go to college, trade school, self-employment, credit repair, record cleanup, career goals? What are your dreams? Now you have your life back, and you get to decide where you want to go and who you want to be in your future. And you always keep having goals and work towards them by working on your short-term goals. You should always have long-term goals and be updating these. The next is to be cautious with vulnerability. As mentioned before, people don't understand and will judge and invalidate and trigger you. It's not up to you to be a teacher to them. And it's best to always remember what's happened to you, but there's no need to mention it to anyone unless you trust them and they have real, genuine love for you and are willing to try and understand. Honestly, for me, it's a little bit too taxing to try to be teaching every damn buddy, about this trauma bond shit and toxic relationship. Like, dude, a lot of the times it goes in one ear and out the other. And, generally in my life right now, like, I don't force shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I feel like I have to force or explain too much, I just don't even bother doing it, because you're obviously not that interested, or whatever the case may be. So, if it's too taxing for me, I'm not going to waste my time on it. You know what I mean? But you just need to remember to be cautious with who you're being vulnerable around, because some people will take advantage of you. They'll hurt you emotionally. Maybe they're not even trying to, but you're vulnerable. So you have to be careful who you're around, and let's see that side of you. Lastly is going to be to have patience and self-compassion. In this process, accept and manage your emotions, learn about yourself and create new relationships with your newfound information. You have new information now, and you have a responsibility with that. Like, you can't, you shouldn't want to live the same way that you was living before, where you ended up in a toxic situation. Now that you're free from that, or you're becoming free from it, you have the tools necessary to get out and to provide a better future for yourself, and to find yourself after these experiences. So that's all I have, man. I try to keep the video as short as possible. Still went kind of a little bit long, but I hope that you enjoy this video. I hope that you guys are getting something out of these videos. I hope that they ultimately help you to find yourself and have self-love and self-compassion. And yeah, stay tuned for my next video. This one was the breaking free from toxic relationship videos. And next video is going to be healing after toxic narcissistic abuse. So I'm kind of trying to do this stuff in order, you know what I'm saying? But stay tuned for that video. And hey, if these videos are providing you with some type of comfort, help, guidance, reassurance, reminder, hope, healing, recovery, any of that nature, I'm going to ask that you help me out by subscribing to my channel, liking the video, sharing the video with somebody that it may help. and dropping some comments. Drop some comments on your thoughts, your concerns, your experiences, and stuff like that. I'm open to hearing what you guys think. And you can hit me up at my email, findingyourselfagain@gmail.com. Hit me up on there, and you can message me and whatever you got going on. If you have a question or you just want to shoot me some words of encouragement or whatever, you can shoot it to me on there. I hope you guys are having a great day and taking care of yourselves. Have a good one. Peace. Bye.